Welcome back. So, now we will be discussing the stakeholder theory of the firm. In our earlier discussions, we discussed about corporate social responsibility, corporate social responsiveness, and corporate social performance, and we discussed like all these things are first we need to consider beyond these things. Of course, these responsibilities, responsiveness or performances are for whom, and whenever we are talking of for whom, there comes the relevance of stakeholder theory of the firm. So, if you recollect, like in today's discussion, we started with the shareholders responsibility or limited responsibility towards the firm, and when you're talking of corporation, we talked of like corporation as a legitimate entity, we talked of the artificial existence of the organization, and we talked of like the shareholders, the responsibility of the fiduciary responsibility of the managers and the directors of the firm towards the shareholders' money. And when we introduced the concept of corporate moral responsibility and social responsibility, we discussed about the shifting of the perspective from the shareholder orientation to the stakeholder orientation. So, before we move on to the discussion of the stakeholder theory of the firm in details, we have to understand whom do we define as who are the stakeholders of the particular firm. So, this is a theory of the firm which is developed by Edward Freeman, and the definition of a stakeholder of an organization is any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of the organization's objectives. So, we can see it is a two-way relationship. So, whenever we recognize a body, a party as a stakeholder, that can be an individual or a group. So, the stakeholders can affect or get affected by the achievements of the organization's objectives. So, the organization, in order to reach its objectives, it may affect the stakeholders or they may get affected by the stakeholders. So, it is a both way. More precisely, to define this who gets affected and how they get affected, is the definition can be looked into two things, which is called the principle of corporate rights. So, the corporation has the obligation not to violate the right of others, and the principle of corporate effect, that companies are responsible for the effects of their actions on others. So, if you notice these two definitions very carefully, it talks of like the corporation cannot violate certain rights which others enjoy for the sake of reaching its own objectives. So, this is principle of corporate rights. So, a corporation has the obligation not to violate the rights of others. Second is companies are responsible for the effects of their actions on others. So, whenever certain consequences are there, then based on the services or the products, the deliverables, which the objectives that this organization has set for itself, when it gives rise to certain consequences, either the things that you produce or deliver, or the way that you do the things, if it leads to any consequences, then the corporates are responsible for it. Based on these 2 points of emphasis, where we are talking of the stakeholders are getting affected by, or it can affect also the performance of the organization, we can extend or elaborate the definition of stakeholders by incorporating it within it these definition of enjoying the rights or rights not getting violated by the corporation, and we can define it in a broader way by stating that stakeholders are individuals or groups who gets either harmed or benefited by the firm. Stakeholders are individuals who either gets benefited or harmed by the firm, or whose rights can be violated or respected by the corporation. To repeat, stakeholder is a group of individual, or stakeholder is an individual or group who is either harmed by or who gets benefited from the corporation, and whose rights can be violated or be respected by the corporation. So, in this definition, we incorporate this concept of rights being enjoyed or violated, and the stakeholders getting affected by or affected by the organizations and its deliverables, and how it does it things to how it the processes that it follows in its business. Next question comes after we have defined who is a stakeholder. Next question comes, whom do we recognize as our stakeholders? In this, again, we have different views of recognizing whom do we consider as our stakeholders. Let us focus into this model. In this, if we are looking into the traditional way, which we call to be the traditional model of doing a business, the two-way arrow as shown is existing only between the firm and the shareholders. In the traditional model, the other important contributors to the business, like the suppliers, the employees, and the customers, they have only one-way arrow with the one-way relationship with the organization. Means, if you are concentrating on the diagram, you can understand initially in the traditional model, the four important actors who have been given prominence as important contributors to the firm are shareholders, suppliers, customers, and employees. out of these four entities who are connected with the business and helping the business to reach its objectives, the firm has recognized through its fiduciary responsibility for the shareholders' money, and only with the shareholders there is a two-way relationship, but with the suppliers, the employees, the customers, this is taken to be one-way relationship only, where they are only suppliers are providing goods to the firm, raw materials to the firm, employees are providing their services to the organization, customers are buying the products from the organization or the services from the organization. But the firm's responsibility back to the customers, employees or the suppliers have not been recognized in the traditional model of doing a business, where we talk of this model as the shareholder orientation of doing a business. Second, with the emergence of the stakeholder theory of the firm, which is the second generation model, there we find like this both way relationship has been established not only with the shareholders but also with suppliers, employees and customers, recognizing that suppliers have important stake in the firm's business because they are contributing positively by giving imports, materials, etc. And if compared with the shareholders, the other three don't have a like shareholders invest based on the prices of share and the gain that they will be getting out of the dividends and other things. But suppliers and employees and customers do not have such a mental set when they are giving their services or buying from the organization or giving their supplying their raw materials. So as compared to shareholders, maybe they have a long-term perspective in mind as compared to the shareholders who are investing based on different judgments which are self-enhancing for the shareholders themselves in terms of the they are comparing the share prices and all this and the relative gains that they will be getting. So it becomes legitimate to say that suppliers, employees and customers do have a legitimate stake in the firm because they are contributing positively towards the performance of the firm, and it is not only and only the shareholders. So the initial stakeholder theory of the firm realized this two-way relationship with the suppliers, employees and the customers. Next, when this and these are taken to be the primary stakeholders, shareholders, suppliers, employees and customers are taken to be the primary stakeholders of the organization, because the organization can visualize a direct connect between what they are contributing to the firm's performance and objectives. But also there are certain stakeholders like government, the other competitors, the civil society at large, whom the firm may not visualize, interpret to be contributing directly to the firm's objective or performance, but they do definitely have an influential effect on how the firm is performing in terms of facilitating or hindering the performance of the organization. So these are also realized: government, competitors, civil society. We can also add here environment, may have an effect on how the organization is performing in terms of either facilitating it or the being hindering it. So these also have been recognized as stakeholders. So this is an extended model of the stakeholders, where you're trying to cover all the entities that are directly or indirectly connected with your business, and either they affect or get affected by the way that you are doing your business. In this particular network model that we are discussing over here, what we find, what is written in gray color over here, in the network model, we recognize the stakeholders of the direct stakeholders who are connected to us as also our stakeholders first. So you see, like the customer stakeholders are also getting recognized as the stakeholder of this particular firm, number one. And we understand the interconnectivity between the different stakeholders. So here what you find, the competitors and governments are getting connected, the suppliers and the shareholders are getting connected, suppliers and civil society are getting connected, civil society employees are getting connected, employees and customers are getting connected. So this is a network, or your competitors and customers, very important, your customers and competitors are getting connected, and that's how this web is becoming more complex day by day. So it is not only your immediate direct stakeholders, but some indirect stakeholders also, where you see your competitors also are your stakeholders. It's very important because you recognize their contribution in influencing your business, or you see how you can influence their business. The government, the civil society, the society at large, and the environment, and you see like the interconnectivity between these stakeholders, and also the stakeholder to that stakeholder is also a part of your it becomes a part of your stakeholder, and this defines the extended responsibility of the firm to not only your direct stakeholders but to the stakeholder of the stakeholders, and it also gives an idea to the firm, like, so this chain talks of your extended responsibility not only to the immediate stakeholder but to the stakeholder of the stakeholder also. And it also, this network gives an idea to the firm about if my business is affecting one of the stakeholders, if my business is affecting one of the stakeholders in certain way, because any one of the stakeholders in certain way, because all the stakeholders are connected to each other, it may send ripples across, and that may have a major impact on how I do my business. So this impact can be both positive if I am acting, if I am doing my business in a socially responsible way. So this impact, this ripples will be a positive ripples which will spread across the stakeholders and develop a positive reputation for the organization. But if I am doing my business in a socially irresponsible way, and if that irresponsiveness is towards any of the stakeholders, it may send ripples all across and may have a detrimental effect for the business at large. And this network model helps us to understand the complexity of the relationship, and it spreads a word of caution of how, in what way we should be responsive towards the expectations of the stakeholders and how to take care of those expectations. So next, what we move on to, like how the stakeholder theory is getting practiced in international context. So we see, like when you're talking of maybe German supervisory board, it already includes employee representatives of the Keiretsu system in Japan, where you're talking of network of banks, manufacturers, suppliers and service providers. So when this has recognized about the network relationship present for the stakeholders and how this can be relationship can be maintained properly with all the stakeholders is discussed in these type of system. We have like different forms of stakeholder theory, and these forms of stakeholder theory can be classified under three different headings. So these three forms are normative stakeholder theory, descriptive stakeholder theory and instrumental stakeholder theory. Normative stakeholder theory tries to discuss why a corporate should take care of the stakeholders, or why it should take into account the views of the different stakeholders. This why part, this normative part, we have answered just now in the previous slide, where we were focusing on the network model of the stakeholders, and we came to understand that if we are, because the stakeholders, all the stakeholders are related to each other, all the different stakeholders are related to each other, and the stakeholders are also remotely connected to us, the firm, then we have a mutual responsibility and a holistic responsibility to all the stakeholders, and we have an extended responsibility to the stakeholders of the stakeholders also. So if we are doing something positive for the stakeholders, any of the stakeholders, then it helps in creating a positive impact, a positive result throughout, and that helps in the enlightened self-interest of the organization. Positive. And why we should not be doing any harm, again, is if we are doing any harm to one of the stakeholders, it has a multiplicative effect on all the other stakeholders. And what we may see, like, yes, I have done this much of harm, maybe to one, is actually not that small harm, but it is a multiplicative effect which is spread across all the different stakeholders, and the damage could be a major damage, both from the moral perspective and from the business interest perspective also. So when you're talking of normative stakeholder theory, we are focusing on the why the stakeholders should be taken care of from a moral perspective, and we want to focus on this thing, like, because all the stakeholders are contributing in a positive way towards the performance of the firm. Obviously, they have developed certain stake in the organization's expectations from the organizations, and it is a part of moral responsibility of the organization to see that they are not violating any of their rights and or not harming them, and otherwise providing benefits to them and respecting their rights of the stakeholders who are contributing positively, either directly or remotely, to the performance and growth of the organization. That is the normative stakeholder theory. When we talk of descriptive stakeholder theory, it talks of attempts to ascertain whether and how actually they take into account stakeholder interest. So what you find is a difference of normative theory and descriptive theory. Normative theory talks of the ideal condition, which talks of corporates and why corporates should take into account the stakeholders' interest. When it comes to the practice of taking care of the interest of the stakeholders, the organization may need to devise certain mechanisms how to take care of the needs of the stakeholders. It may so happen there are 2, 3, 4, 5 different stakeholders expressing their demand to be satisfied expectations at the same point of time to the organization. But the organization do not have the resources to answer to all the demands of all the stakeholders at a same point of time. So it may be so required that there are a prioritization of the stakeholders, and the prioritization of the demands of a specific stakeholder may require to be done so that the firm can zero down on some of the stakeholders whose needs are met, or some needs of the stakeholders are met, however that they want to prioritize it. So when you're discussing about the descriptive stakeholder theory, here we are focusing on whether and how corporations actually do take into account the stakeholder interest. And here, of course, one important point is that of prioritization, and in the subsequent models we'll try to discuss about this, how this prioritization of stakeholders' interests are done by the organization. Third stakeholder theory that we are focusing on is the instrumental stakeholder theory, and here we'll try to focus on the question whether it is beneficial for the corporation to take into account the stakeholders' interest. So here what we'll be focusing on is the benefits, mutual benefits that is derived. And when you have talked of enlightened self-interest of the business, when we introduce the concept of corporate social responsibility, so that is the benefit that the organization derives from taking care of the stakeholders and the needs of the stakeholders, and this is called the instrumental stakeholder theory. In the subsequent discussions, we will be, like when you talk of employees and ethics, consumers and ethics, suppliers and ethics, environment and ethics, these are specific stakeholders, and how their specific needs are taken care of by the organizations will be discussed in details in the subsequent discussions, and how it becomes beneficial for the organization, for the stakeholders also, and how actually these needs are taken care of. What are the specific guiding theories which helps to with respect to each of the stakeholders, which helps the organization to answer to these stakeholders' stake and interest in a proper way, will be discussed in the subsequent modules. Next, we'll move on to the accountability of the organization when we talk of corporate accountability and the firm as a political actor. Thank you.